event, so participation is encouraged. We have Q&A open. We'll also be doing polls throughout the event. We have Amy, who is moderating. We are June Solutions, and we aim to radically change the way data is utilized versus a more traditional approach. Our topic today is a guide to successful digitization of assets for exit readiness. I'm John Barrett. I'm the CEO and founder of June Solutions. My background is a bit more traditional. I'm from IBM and Teradata, when we used to invest large amounts of money into giant machines to process data, thus the drive to create something new. Marco, the co-founder, is also on the call with me, and Tuan, the CTO. Marco will introduce himself a little bit later, but here he is. So let's get started. So what is digitization really? It's kind of become a buzzword. Digitization and digital transformation is thrown out quite a bit. What the meaning is for private equity, in our opinion, is being able to represent and manage assets through a digital medium such as data or reports or dashboards. So PwC, in their private equity trend report in 2021, reported that digitization is the most important factor for exit readiness. So every PE firm should be focused on digitization if their assets are not already modernized. Data is the best way to measure how far a company is in a digitization journey or digital transformation. And the largest issue that PE firms face is that over 80% of projects fail. So we're here today to offer some guidance and some insights into how to make sure that your digitization or your data project is a success. June Solutions, as I said, is not really a PE firm, but we are a data consultancy, and we have a very similar approach to private equity. So in essence, we follow a very similar process. So first, when we approach an asset or an organization, we assess the as-is status of an organization. We determine the to-be situation, so where they are today and where they're trying to go. Measure the gap between the two, and then try to get everyone, or try to get the organization to the desired state. For assets in the private equity sector, this desired state would be full digitization or some sort of digital transformation, upping that resell value of the asset. PE firms maybe take this a step further and benchmark against their peers or other companies to get more valuation on the resell. So I'm sure everyone is familiar with that. Where PE firms use more of a financial medium, we use a technical medium, that being data. But we have the same approach and business focus. We do things from a technical perspective, whereas PE firms do a more strategic approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Marco take us through more or less a journey of some examples of things we've seen in the industry, projects we've done, and some things we can point out and takeaways so your next project is a success. Take it away, Marco.
Thanks so much, John, for that introduction. So maybe quickly, briefly about me. I started my journey in data just 3 years ago. My original background is actually in education. Right now, I did rack up a couple of certifications like the Google Data Engineer or ML Engineer. So I'm really heavily invested in the path. Being relatively new in the space allows me to question some industry approaches from first principle. Although I do have to say, our industry is actually a very active, vibrant one with lots of companies doing excellent work, right? So we can really look towards partners and other companies for good approaches to go about data. We'll introduce a couple of methods that we've sharpened over many projects from a business point of view, right? And this is kind of where we'll have our first poll. So in your screen, your Google Meet screen on the right-hand side, the bottom right, you should be finding a poll just now. So say you are in charge of reporting on the data maturity of a company your firm is interested in. So what do? Would you hire an outside consultant, rely on your own team, right? So of the PE firm, or rely on the company's reports. Just give that a go, and we'll get back to the poll in a few minutes. If you have any issues, be sure to find the chat. Amy's there to help you out. Now, from there, data, we're all data. The amount of companies focusing on AI solutions and data is through the roof. The buzzwords are everywhere. However, where companies really are is something entirely different. As a little side story here, one company we engaged with recently booked a consultation, and we like to do our homework. So we visited the company's website. Let's call the company Super App, to really try and sketch out what the business model looks like, get some more information, really get prepared for that introductory call. And we were quite impressed, right? So they have beautiful infographics, AI-driven decision-making, cloud-based technology, we're data science experts, basically all the bells and whistles. When we had our discovery call, it turned out that they had magnificent ideas. They just needed a little bit of help with the data backend. And when we got really down to it and figured out what it exactly meant, is they had an app front end, a large team, but no one in the team had ever worked with data systems at scale, and there was no strategy in place. So it's like they designed a Roman bath, but forgot all about the plumbing. And this is really what we focus on when we engage with any company. We start off there, figure out where a company portrays they are, so to the public, where they think they are themselves, and where they actually are. Now, let's revisit that poll that we have. Let's see if we have a couple of votes in the poll right here. So most folks would rely on their own team. That's fantastic, because I do think building your own team will also give you more credibility down the line. However, quick way to focus where your team might be at is trying to establish data maturity. I say quick, I'm going to correct myself there. Big institutions all have their own process, right? So establishing data maturity often goes with big assessment or audit models. I'm quickly going to show one model and then reflect on whether we really need it. So this is an example of a Stanford maturity model. So what are we looking at here? You've got maturity dimensions up top, people, policies, capabilities, maturity components down the front, so awareness, data quality, measurement types on the side. Basically, what you're going to get in this framework is for every grid that you see in the cube, there is a detailed explanation of how to assess the state of the company in that very moment. In this next image, you see an example of Boston Consultancy Group, in their form of this audit model, giving index scores in this different verticals, right? So it's a visual scorecard. Now, this whole process is very detailed and methodical, but can also take more than a year to fully complete, especially for larger businesses. Now, what if the head of marketing starts an influencer campaign right after the audit's finished, or starts with a new email marketing tool? Changes like these can be implemented super quickly because of SaaS, software as a service, or where software is right now. It's built for exactly quick and easy implementation. So the software you have from your report is complex, came to you slow, and is not agile enough. Companies are living organizations, and doing an audit doesn't allow for agility. So what's the alternative then? Basically, start small, start early, and break things up. So start with 3 questions. That's how we do it, and we document everything along the way. So let's look at what those are, what we always ask. Who's responsible for the data? Now, this might be trivial, but some companies will point to the IT department, and that's when you really should have a little red light going up already. IT departments, they are not prepared, they're not formed to do what a data team does. So what does a data team do? They're supposed to manage and deliver data in useful forms to the rest of the organization. And the best way to look at a data team is really its own entity, just like an accounting department, let's say. So imagine you have a business with 100 employees. How many accountants would you have in that business? 2 or 3? A data team should be no less for a routine company. Technological companies, heavily focused on technology, might have a few more. For smaller companies, yet again, you might have a single person directly reporting to the CEO. Data dies when it just lives in the IT department. Second question there, what is your stack, or what stack do you use? And that relates to the image we have on the side. If you know what you're talking about, this question is easy to handle. So you found out who's responsible for the data. You ask them, what stack do you use? They'll just give you a list of tools. It doesn't have to be the case that you need to ramble on and explain this for a long amount of time. This can easily be use Airbyte as a loader, BigQuery as a data warehouse, and Metabase for BI, dbt for modeling. It can just be a list. And same thing, the person asking the question will understand, in a clear way, or at least a gist of what is going on in the organization. Now, moving on to the last question, how do you use your data? This is really an open question. Answer here can vary, right? Very often people will already diverge on plans they have or internal conflicts that might have been or that they have overcome as a team. We recommend to just listen actively and take notes. Again, document everything. And from there, you can learn a lot already. Ultimately, right, we're talking about data initiatives, digitization, but a lot of this goes around, people and is involved with how people interact with it. So actively listen to what they have to say. We often ask if we can record our talk, and also we'll send notes back to the customer to check again. That brings us to our next point. So you did a quick estimation, you decided whether or not you're going to use your in-house team, your own team, find a consultancy. This can maybe help you make that decision. The next thing we do from here is department stories. So we will go and collect department stories. A common mistake is focusing on pleasing or reporting to management, C-level management. The CEO is often the last person you need to worry about. We try and focus on departments as logical business units with separate needs. If you're able to figure out how they need to use their data, how the department needs to use it, you can often enough abstract it out for the CEO for a bird's eye view. When we collect these department stories, we try and define the end user. So what are their goals in a broader business sense? What are their responsibilities? Who do they interact with? This helps us imagine, their day-to-day and helps us understand, what they truly need. Then ask them to specify what they want. And then break down their wants in small achievable chunks. This can be anything from I need to be able to see how many clicks I have every week on my website, how many people opened my email, how many products I sold last month in region A, and so on and so forth. Try and ask for specific metrics and filters they find important. And also, this is a great time to ask for visuals of examples of what they want, right? Often people have seen a graph that they've been impressed by at another company or at a presentation. Maybe they've taken a screenshot. This day and age, it's easy enough to just share visuals and bring that into your department story as well. Then try and describe the benefit, like why would they need this? So basically combining 1 and 2 and trying to abstract out how it would benefit their goals and responsibilities. Then this is a very important step. You've spoken to them, right? And then you take a step back and try and verify this with the data available. End users all too often have exciting stories about personalized marketing with machine learning or very granular filters that they've seen somewhere. Now, it's very important that you check that is possible with the data that is available. For example, granularity, right? If a sales chart needs to be filtered on a package level for the targets in a certain region, but the targets are only defined per product, that's never going to work out. So you need to truly check the data that is available before you define the last point, and that's the acceptance criteria. Now, these can be revisited, so write them down. Even at this point in time, they appear a little bit vague. It's not the case that we approach this from a project point of view. It's more of a process, right? We're trying to develop a data product. So it's still very important to write down those acceptance criteria from there. That brings me to our next slide, and that is on the iterative process. What are we looking at here? So this is actually a trend that the data industry borrowed from software development, and it applies really well. On the right-hand side or left-hand side, we see these small purple squares. Those are use cases. So remember our wants from the data story. We're going to translate them into a use case, and we're going to write them all up. So for example, again, the ROI on my Google ad campaign. Then we're going to create a backlog with all those use cases, and we're going to select from those for an iteration. An iteration basically is a short period of time in which we set, certain tasks, right? So we set our iterations at 2 weeks, and that means we're going to select a couple of use cases that we'll work on for 2 weeks. We have a set of steps for those iterations, right? Some can be skipped, some can be offloaded. It really depends. Let's say if you're loading in all your data in a previous iteration, you won't have to go and set up the data again, right? So it's still important to have the steps there, and it feels really good if you can just click through something that was already done before, or push through a skip. So at the end of your iteration case, so at the end of the 2 weeks, you verify and validate, and that's where you pick up your department user stories again and look at them, right? You created those documents that are really important. You use them to validate before you conclude your iteration, right? And at the very end of this, you basically report on the results and you release this, right? Similar to a software update. You can release this to all stakeholders, which means management as well as the end users, and also internally for everyone to follow up. Breaking stuff down in something so small makes it really clear and easy to follow. We have a saying in the company, clear is kind. It's helpful for everyone to break things up, and it will create a lot more productivity. Now, do understand that everything evolves and data always grows. The better you do your job, the more requirements there might be from a department. So be patient and be ready to revise, right? So quick recap for my section, and I'm going to hand it off to John. Businesses do not always know where they are on their data journey, and they actually have a vested interest in portraying they are further than they actually are. We do not need a full-scale data audit before we can get started. Actually, it's better, again, to start with small things, break it up, and document along the way, and form your audit that way. Focus on departments rather than on C-levels, and create user stories to help you understand who needs what. And then break up the work in small chunks and document everything along the way. That's it for me, John. I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thanks, Marco. All right, so let's kick things off with a poll. So what is the best way to gain company-wide adoption of data-driven culture? Is it A, establish a project leader from a specific department? B, predetermine who will use technology and only assign that team to create metrics for everyone else. C, select people from all parts of the organization as early adopters and give agency to those people. We'll revisit this poll in a few minutes. Hopefully we can get some participation. So Industry 4.0 has created a lot of different tools that various assets and organizations take advantage of, and these are typically good. So we have tools like CRMs for Salesforce, we have ERPs for finance and management. The idea is each department having its own tool is great, but it creates what we call departmental silos. So recently we were working with a company that had implemented an ERP system. And when we asked who uses it and how utilized is it throughout the organization, the response was it was only a couple of people in the finance team, and this was a huge investment. The organization and asset also believed that it was full digitization, right? When really all they did was make the finance department ultra efficient, which is fantastic. However, there's a larger picture to be formed. So traditionally, what would happen is companies would assign a project head or a department head, focusing on one success, one department, and have that person be a lead for the entire company. What this does is, again, create a single point of failure or a department silo. So what we like to do as a team is create early adopters that we define as data ambassadors. So this should be about 30% to 70% of your organization. So 30% of the people should be early adopters and data ambassadors. The other 70 can just be people in your company, right? Until the entire project is finished. So certain people within an organization will stand out as data users. They will create great reports. They're already using data points to tell stories. They're already sparking conversations and inspiration throughout the organization and driving things by creating these reports. Three main things that data ambassadors should do is have a collective responsibility. They should have agency and let them define what is important for the metrics that are being collected through the iterative process. And they should also be responsible for creating an easy feedback loop for other ambassadors to collaborate and share throughout the iterative process. We do this by setting up Kanban boards or open message forums, or just a way for everyone to share ideas back and forth throughout the organization. As assets become more and more data-driven, these data ambassadors and the early adopters should be consulted regularly until everyone is part of the organization and data literate, which we'll talk about in just a second. Also, when you're establishing data ambassadors and early adopters, they should be from throughout the organization. Aligning kind of with what Marco shared is it doesn't have to be a CXO, it doesn't have to be a manager, it doesn't have to be a department head, it can be anyone who's really good at understanding and using data. BI tools have become really easy to use, they're drag and drop, so anyone can kind of learn to do this, again, being a champion within the company. So make sure they have a way to collaborate as a unit themselves and give them as much agency as possible. So let's go to the poll. What were the results on that? What do we say? Yeah, great answer. Select people from all parts of the organization. Give agency. Excellent. We have a lot of really smart people on the call. Good. Establish a project leader from a specific department can be useful if that is a departmentalized, specialized tool. So just a little bit of feedback there. So next thing I want to talk about is data literacy. So we're going to give another poll. What is the best way to have an organization share impactful information? So is it A, easy to understand data stories with a clear message? B, lots and lots of meetings? Or C, create a message board that allows everyone to share ideas? So again, we were working with a company recently who was from the logistics industry. So again, this was a logistics platform that specializes in transport globally. And when they invested in this BI platform, we asked them what was the most or best critical insight that they gained. Their response was, we're getting a lot, we're not getting a lot from it. The data that's shown is things we knew already, and we had Excel. So we're not seeing a lot of usage out of this new BI platform. So what's happened is BI tools have become extremely user-friendly. Drag and drop, you can make excellent visualizations. It's excellent, but it's important to consider what's inside the visualization and the people who are creating the KPIs and the people who are collecting and need to use that data daily. Which brings me to the next slide, which is creating data stories that make sense. So when you see a clearly defined data point, like this simple visualization, what is the story it tells? So for me, when I see this, it's a bit scary, but 36% of people will try to accomplish a task without using data after a digitization project, which is not good. And 14% of people would do the task or would just not do the task required if it required data usage. So what we find industry-wide and companies that have the same issue, data is not accessible to the people that need it. Data is not easily digestible, so it's in a format that people don't really understand. Maybe the visualizations are messy. We see the famous spaghetti graph all the time, and data is not relevant to their needs. So again, you can see how this investment would be frustrating after implementing this business intelligence system. But communication in the way of ingesting and sharing new information is very, very important. And every organization, within every organization, there may not be financial wizards, might not be marketing gurus, but everyone can understand a well-defined data point like this one here. So when we talk about well-defined data points and what we're trying to achieve, we like to call it data storytelling. So what we do is after data ambassadors are established and that 30% of the company is well-defined, they transfer their knowledge to the rest of their departments and the rest of their areas. And they are a key factor in collecting feedback from the rest of the team. So that's a bit of a knowledge transfer. We also like to have people hold workshops for creating good visualizations and creating good stories using data. And also during this activity, the rest of the adopters of the business intelligence platform will be able to give feedback to the data ambassadors and then bring that to the iterative process that we talked about earlier. So it all kind of ties together in circular motion. So let's go to the poll, see what the results were. So we said the best way to have is easy to understand data stories with a clear message. Perfect. Really love that. That's 100%. So we're going to review the 5 points that the takeaways that we kind of wanted to share today. So first is data maturity. We want to assess effectively and stay agile in the early stages of a digitization or a data project. For department stories, that's creating stories that are focused on logical business units. The iterative process is a great way to create a feedback loop and continually improve the way the data is used throughout the organization or asset. It's also important to establish data ambassadors, assign early adopters, again, the 30%, 70% rule, and business unit leaders and individuals can all participate in this. It doesn't just have to be a department head or a CXO. And finally, data literacy. This is the practice in which the whole company should be using data daily and participating in the iterative process. So that's kind of what makes us different. These are the main takeaways that we wanted to share today. On the next slide, I just wanted to talk about our company and how we're different and how we can help you thrive through your next project. So if what we've shown is a little bit overwhelming, or if it seems like a lot to take on or a lot of information, we offer free consultation to anyone that's interested. We'll share this video and we'll share some documentation after this. And again, we're always here for support through any of our media channels. Some things that really stand out, again, for June is we're application agnostic, so we work on any platform, AWS, GCP, any three-letter company, we pretty much work with it. If continuous support is what you're looking for, that's typically what we offer to make sure that projects like digitization are successful. And the third thing is competitive monthly pricing for a quality service. So we offer subscription model for data as a service. So that's it for me. Opening the floor for Q&A.